Dan Illman, Mike Beer kicking off a 50-cent pick four on Florida Derby Saturday at Gulfstream Park with race number 11, the Sanibel Island Stakes. Three-year-old fillies going a two-turn, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. Before we take a look at the field, remember, last chance to get those free Timeform USPPs in your DRFPPs. Go to DRF.com, access your past performances. You'll see the Timeform US tab. Click on it, access all the cool Timeform US features. You'll be a believer like us. Here's the field for the Sanibel Island, and it's a pretty evenly matched group. The number 2, Love Appeals, is the 3-1 morning line favorite off of a debut win for trainer Christophe Clement. Looked good that day with a good trip. It's going to be facing tougher. Not sure how short you want to go.
Yeah, that's the key just for just about everybody in this race, Dan, just to wait and see how they bet it. I don't think you would want to go too short on anybody in here. That being said, Love Appeals did just about everything right in her debut. She has a pedigree behind her. She won that race a little bit easier, I think, than that margin of victory might suggest. And there's just tons of upside here.
Well, let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. In this big field, we are expecting pace. The 4 Facciabella has shown a little bit of speed in her career. She's a big price. You would think her best chance would be to be up and on the pace. Mohawk Trail has a little bit of speed. She's a Joy has some tactical speed. There really aren't that many blazers in here, Mike, so it'll be interesting to see if that red bar does come to pass.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either. There are certainly horses that can go forward in here, Dan. I thought in some ways the pace might hinge on the 9 Aunt Shirley, who was making her turf debut here off a layoff for Pletcher. They last ran her in a grade 1 on dirt, but they just rated her to the back. Her career debut, she actually showed a lot of speed in that race going short.
And we'll talk about her in a bit with that gigantic turf pedigree. But we'll start things off with a very promising filly trained by Jonathan Thomas. This is the number 1, Mrs. Astor, who looked good winning a maiden, going 1 mile and a 16th at Gulfstream in her first start of the year. Here's Mrs. Astor on the outside, and she just rolls by these horses.
I really like the finish she puts in this race. Overall, she had a pretty good trip, just very strongly rated early, waited for the stretch to make her move. And you can see how easy she wins here, Dan. That was a pretty strong finish she put in. She also ran well 2 starts back where she did not get a great trip and might have been really unlucky not to break her maiden that day. Feels like there's a lot of upside here.
She's hoping for a solid pace up front because she does run hard in the stretch, and it appears she's getting better. The 2 Love Appeals was very professional, winning her debut for Christophe Clement over course and distance back in February. Let's watch this race from Love Appeals, who was able to save a little bit of ground, but she's in behind horses turning for the stretch. She's going to have to find a way through, and she very professionally gets to the inside and then finishes it off when it looks like she doesn't have the momentum for a minute.
Yeah, it does. And she's going to win it actually under strong handling here too, Dan. It's not like Rosario, sort of put her all in to win this race after squeezing through on the rail. I just thought she did just about everything right in there. She has a really big pedigree behind her. It just feels like there's way better to come for this filly.
She has wonderful tactical speed, or so it appears, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets a similar trip, breaking from this comfortable inside post position. The number 3 is Riding Pretty, and this is a filly that's improved, stretching out on turf with blinkers. I'm interested in your take on the Here Comes the Bride last time out. She was a gigantic price. I think she ran pretty well, considering she was in and among horses on the backstretch. When the pace began to heat up on the second turn, she was a little bit outpaced, and she really never got clear. I thought she was in behind horses for most of the stretch.
I did too. It makes her a pretty tough call in this race, I think, because obviously she went off at a huge price while stepping way up in class for that Here Comes the Bride. So she had something to prove. And I could argue either side of it, Dan. Maybe she really did prove it because, like you, I just felt like she never really came clear in the stretch. It was pretty hard to tell how much horse she actually had. So I don't know if she was going to finish a lot closer or not, but maybe she would have. To me, that just means it all comes down to price here. She was over 50-1 last time. She's 5-1 on the line here. I'll wait and see what kind of price she is.
I wonder if she drifts, going out for a low-profile trainer in a race with Pletchers and Clements and horses with big pedigrees. Maybe Riding Pretty will drift off of the 5-1. Facciabella is the number 4, a gate-to-wire winner 2 starts back. Then they tried her in graded stakes competition in the Florida Oaks, and she didn't get to the lead that day. And that alone makes me think that they're going to try to go to the frontier.
I think they will too. We'll see if it makes any kind of a difference because she clearly has to improve if she's going to win this race. Dan, I think they'll get aggressive with her. We'll see if she can take the necessary step forward. She'll be a big price again.
One of the also-rans in that last race on turf did come back to earn a stakes placing on dirt with a 73 buyer against Florida breds. Breath Away is up next. She's a nose away from being a perfect 2 for 2 for Clement. They ran her on the synthetic last time out, going a mile and 70 yards. And as the favorite, she was last early. She had to swing widest into the stretch, and she's just going to miss. I think she gained a lot of valuable experience from this start and is another that would benefit from a fast pace.
Yeah, agreed. I thought almost she looked like she had this race won when she made the lead there, Dan,
Yep.
and maybe didn't see this horse coming up the rail on her there until it was too late, but she still ran well in that race. I liked her turf debut also. She got a good trip in that race, actually very similar to the trip that her stablemate Love Appeals pulled in her debut. They both sat on the inside behind the lead. They both got clear in the stretch, and they both finished up pretty well.
Mohawk Trail, the number 6, was a first level allowance winner 2 starts back at Tampa Bay, was part of the pace in the Florida Oaks along with Facciabella, and then tired at a gigantic price. She has a lot to prove. She'll likely be close to the pace again.
Yeah, I agree. She'll be up close to the pace here. It just feels like she has an awful lot of improving to do as they run her in another stakes race.
The 7 Lady Hamilton benefited from a class drop, a switch in surface, a stretch out around 2 turns, and maybe Lasix to win her last 2 starts. Here's her most recent start. This is a $35,000 starter allowance going a mile and a 16th, and she's had a very good trip off the leader. She takes over into the stretch, and she wins with a minimum of fuss. The runner-up would come back to win at this level with a 70 buyer, but no Lasix here, a big step up in class. She is much improved.
Yeah, she is. That's true. She's 2 for 2 on turf, but the races aren't particularly fast, and she's not beating particularly strong fields either. If you're a believer, you're going to do way better price-wise in this race, Dan. She was the favorite in those last 2 wins. She's going to be a big price here.
The last time She's a Joy stepped on turf was a Florida-bred maiden special 2 starts back. She won that race from close to the pace. Then they ran her on the Tapeta last time out, going a first-level allowance against Florida breds. We'll watch She's a Joy right now. She got up close to the pace in that race, and she ends up finishing a tired third. I just couldn't see any excuses. Maybe she doesn't like the synth and is better on the turf, but boy, she better start running a lot faster.
Yeah, it's reasonable, I guess, to think that maybe she just appreciates turf more than she does the all-weather. This still isn't a great loss against weaker horses, Dan. Another horse, there are several of them in here who are just taking a huge step up in class.
Windstar Farm homebred, the number 9 on Shirley by Triple Crown winner Justify, made her winning career debut over a wet track at Ellis Park. They ran her in the grade 1 spin away. It didn't work out. I like that they gave her time to grow up into herself, and Mike, her pedigree on turf is sensational.
Yeah, I mean, it's all turf on the bottom of her pedigree. Justify's actually been a decent turf sire as well. I guess the only knock that I have on Justify so far, that he's gotten some runners out there, but they're not that good going long, at least as of yet. So we'll see if that changes as this year goes on. But this horse is all turf on the bottom. The dam, a half-sister to a multiple Group 1 winner and millionaire over in Europe. This is the female family of Giants Causeway. There's just tons of pedigree here. I really liked this horse's debut on that wet track going short at Ellis. To me, it almost felt like they didn't even really give her a real chance in the spin away. I'm not even sure why they ran her in that race, Dan. They took a hold of her from the start. They sat on the outside, and she just never made any kind of a run. I also love, I'm not sure when Pletcher took over. I'm assuming it was like earlier this year when this horse got back on the tab in February. I love that he hasn't worked around turf yet.
The 10 is Metaphysical, and this horse ran okay last time out in the Sweetest Chant. It was sort of an even performance. The winner of that race is a nice horse, just missed when third in a grade 3 in her very next start with an 84 buyer. Tough outside post. Javier Castellano's going to have to work something out.
Yeah, her last 2 races are pretty good. I don't know if they make her a serious contender in here, but she kind of feels like she's going to be one of those horses who gets overlooked in this race, and she's not that bad.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Sanibel Island. Mike, you're going with Aunt Shirley in here, big pedigree, and I think your point's very well taken in the open. I think Arad Ortiz is going to try to get forward in here. It's a big field. He doesn't want to be locked in behind horses.
Yeah, I can see her going forward in this race. We'll see how fast the pace is. Obviously, I don't think she needs the lead to be effective. I like her pedigree, Dan. I like this spot for her. The 2 Clement horses, to me, make a ton of sense. I feel like both of those horses could turn out to be pretty good. But if the morning line holds, I'll take the 9.
I want to use your horse, the 9 on Shirley. I do think Riding Pretty is going to drift off the 5-1 morning line. I think she had trouble last time out, like you. I'm not sure how much run she had, but I have a feeling the price might be appealing enough to take one more shot. 3-9-10-5 for me, 9-2-1-5 for Mike. It's the Sanibel Island star-studded card at Gulfstream Park on Florida Derby Saturday. Best of luck.